In the heart of Lagos Island, there lived a woman named Adanna, married to Chief Nnaji, one of the wealthiest men in Nigeria. She had everything a woman could dream of: luxury cars, gold jewelries, designer clothes, and a mansion with more rooms than she could count. But Adanna was known far and wide for one thing: her laziness. Every morning as the sun rose, Adanna would still be coiled into her silk sheet, while the maid rushed about preparing her bubble bath, breakfast in bed, and fresh flowers for her parlor. When she did finally step out of her room, always by noon, she would head straight for the parlor, where she would lounge like a queen on her imported Italia sofa. Chinyere, bring me fresh pineapple juice and make sure it's cold. Ngozi, my feet hot. Come and massage them. Khalifat, where is my diamond iPhone? Why are you people so slow? Her voice echoed through the marble corridor as maids scrambled to fulfill her endless demands. The staff feared her more than they feared the night masquerade. Even the chief's personal assistant, Mr. Ojo, had learned to stay out of her path. Chief Nnaji, however, had had enough. He was a calm and wise man, known not just for his wealth, but for his clever mind. At first, he indulged his wife, thinking she would grow out of her entitled ways. But as months passed by, she only grew worse. She no longer attended family functions, refused to learn about his businesses, and acted as though lifting a finger would cause her royal blood to evaporate. So one evening, as he watched her backed at the cook over the saltiness of the jollof rice, he decided it was time to teach Adanna a lesson she would never forget. But he would not shout, he would not scold. No, Chief Nnaji believed in lessons that came wrapped in mystery and consequences. He called his old friend, Baba Olamide, a retired school teacher turned traditional wisdom keeper. Together, they plotted a plan, a taste of humility, resilience, and survival. A plan that would drag Adanna out of her golden cage and show her the truth of life outside the glitter. Chief Nnaji smiled quietly to himself that night as he stared at the full moon. She wants to be queen, he whispered. Then let's see what it truly means to rule, without servants, without luxury. And so, the stage was set for the story that would shake the very walls of the mansion. A story of pride, struggle, and transformation. But Adanna had no idea. As usual, she sat in the parlor the next day, sipping mango juice and laughing at the reality TV show, completely unaware that her reality was about to be rewritten. And when it did, no amount of diamond phone would save her. The following morning, Adanna rose even later than usual. The maids were already busy with their chores, whispering quietly among themselves. She didn't notice the strange silence in the mansion, or the small envelope placed carefully beside her glass of fresh, squeezed orange juice. It wasn't until she yelled, Chinyere, where is my phone? That she spotted the envelope. On the front was her name, written in Chief Nnaji's elegant handwriting. Curious, she opened it. Dearest Adanna, pack a small bag. You have been invited to an exclusive Women of Elegance retreat. No phone, no maid, no assistant, just you and nature. It is the most prestigious retreat in Africa, designed for only the most respected women. Your ride will pick you up at noon. With love, Chief Naji. Adana's lips coiled into a small smile. Finally, a retreat worthy of my class, she said aloud, tossing the letter on the table. She clapped twice. Ngozi, pack my designer slippers, my gold sunglasses, and my fur coat. Tell Califat to include my perfumes too. By noon, a black Prado jeep pulled into the compound. The driver, dressed in traditional abwada, gave a polite bow. Madam, we are ready. Adana, in full glammed and heel too high for hiking, stepped into the vehicle without even asking where she was going. In her mind, there would be a spa, expensive meals, and perhaps other women who, like her, understood the burden of luxury. She didn't even notice the road was unfamiliar and that the driver said little. After 2 hours, the city was far behind them. She passed thick forest, dusty road, and remote villages. Adana frowned. Where exactly is this retreat? The driver smiled. You will see soon, madam, very soon. At that moment, her phone buzzed, but when she checked it, there was no network. The driver handed her a folded scarf. Please, madam, it's tradition to wear this before entering the retreat. Trust me, you will love the surprise. Adana rolled her eyes but wrapped the scarf around her eyes. When she finally stepped out of the car, she smelled smoke, heard the cry of goats, and felt dirty under her feet. The scarf was removed. She gasped. She wasn't at a retreat. She was in a tiny remote village. No electricity, no tiles floor, no luxury. Before her stood an old woman with a crooked stick and a stern face. Welcome, Adana, the woman said. Here you will learn what it means to be truly elegant. Adana turned, furious, but the jeep has already disappeared. One dust and silence remained. Adana stood frozen, staring at the crumbled hut around her. The air smelled of smoke and wet earth. Chicken ran past her feet, and barefoot children peered curiously from behind the mud walls. Her gold sandals were already stained with red soil. This must be a mistake, she snapped. Where is the spa? Where is the retreat center? The old woman who greeted her earlier didn't flinch. This is the retreat. Here, you learn to walk, you learn to live. Adana scoffed. I don't belong here. My husband will come for me. The woman gave a dry laugh. He already brought you here. Two young girls approached and took her small travel bag without a word. One of them gestured for her to follow. Too stung to argue, Adana followed them down a narrow path, past swaying banana trees and goats munching on grasses. They laid her into a small hut made of clay and roofed with rusted zinc. Inside, there was only a mat on the floor, a lantern, and a small pot of water. Where is my bed? Adana asked, blinking. This is your bed, one girl replied. You will sleep here. Adana turned to leave, but the old woman blocked the doorway. You cannot go until your lesson is complete, she said. Your husband's orders. Adana's throat went dry. She felt like she had swallowed sand. No maid, no phone, no servants, only dirt, silence, and the realization that she had been tricked. As night fell, the village became very quiet. The buzzing of incense replaced the hum of air conditioner. Her silk dress offered no warmth, and her stomach growled loudly. She hadn't eaten since morning. There was a knock on the door. The same young girl returned, this time with a small bowl of yam porridge. No meat, no cutleries. Adana stared at the bowl in horror. Where is the china plate? The spoon? The girl tilted her head. We eat with our hands here, auntie. Adana sat beside the mat, picked at the food with shaky fingers, and took her first bite. It was cold, it was rough, but it was real. That night, as she lay on the mat, swatting mosquitoes and fighting tears, Adana whispered to herself, "This must be a nightmare." But it wasn't. The first ray of sunlight crept through the cracks of the mud wall, waking Adana from her restless sleep. Her back ached, her neck was stiff. Her once glamorous skilled dress now wrinkled and stained with dust and sweat. She sat up slowly, still trying to convince herself that this was some cruel dream. But as her eyes scanned the bare hut and her stomach growled again, she knew this was her new reality. A gentle knock came at the door. She opened it to find the same young girl from the night before. Her name was Ifunanya. "You must fetch water this morning," the girl said politely. "Everyone works here." Adana blinked in confusion. "Fetch water? From where?" "The stream," Ifunanya replied, pointing towards a winding bush path. She handed Adana a rusty metal bucket. Adana looked at it like it was a foreign object. "Do I look like a water girl to you? Do you know who I am?" If Naya didn't answer, instead, she turned and walked away, leaving Adana with the bucket and her pride. After a few minutes of furious muttering, Adana stepped outside, gripping the bucket with two fingers like it was a disease. Her heels sank into the mud. She slipped twice. Her manicured nails cracked. She found the stream half an hour later. Other women and children were already there, chatting and laughing as they filled their containers. They stood when they saw her, her makeup smog, her dress clinging to her with sweat, her expression sore. They didn't laugh, they simply watched. Adana walked down awkwardly and tried to fill her bucket, but the moment she lifted it, water spilled down her legs. Her arms trembled. The walk back felt like torture. The bucket weighed more than her Lois handbags ever could. By the time she returned to the village, she was soaked, muddy and exhausted. The old woman was waiting at the entrance of the compound. "You fetched water," she said calmly. Adana dropped the bucket and hissed, "I am not doing this again. I want to speak to my husband." The old man's face remained unreadable. "You will, when the time is right. For now, you will wash your clothes, sweep this compound, and help in the farm." Adana's eyes widened. "You must be mad. I don't do chores." But the woman had already turned away. The rest of the day passed like a cruel punishment. Adana was handed a broom made from palm fronds. She was made to scrub the floor of the village shrine. She was given a hoe to till the land until the hot sun. By sunset, her legs were shaking. Her hands had blisters. Her body was sore. The villagers said nothing but watched from a distance, some with pity, some with amusement. That night, as she collapsed onto her mat, dirty clinging to her skin and tears to her cheeks, she finally whispered the words she never imagined would leave her lips. "I don't want to be queen anymore." The rooster crowed before dawn, its sharp cry yanking Adana from her sleep. Her limbs screamed in protest as she sat up. Her entire body ached like she had been beaten in her sleep. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what day it was, and she didn't care. She opened the door and met Ifunanya waiting with a faint smile. "Good morning, auntie. Today you will be helping in the kitchen." Adana's heart sank. What kitchen? Ifnaya pointed to a small hut beside a goat pen, smoke already rising from its chimney. Mama Ebele is preparing food for a festival. You will assist her. Adana dragged her feet to the smoky hut, stepping carefully to avoid goats dropping. Inside, she met Mama Ebele, a wide-shouldered woman with dark skin and sharp eyes. She was stirring a large pot of yam pepper soup with a wooden paddle nearly as tall as Adana. You must be the madam from the city, Mama Ebele said without smiling. Come, wash these vegetables. She handed Adana a bowl of ugu leaves covered in red dust. Adana frowned. Don't you have gloves and sanitizers? Mama Ebele burst into laughter so loud it echoed through the village. You want glove? This is not one of your city salons. In this kitchen, you work with your hands. Reluctantly, Adana squatted by the water basin. She dipped her delicate hand into the cold water and began scrubbing the lips. Her fingers, once polished in gold glitters, were now brown with dirt. Faster, Mama Ebele barked. We don't cook for kings by standing still. As the hours passed, Adana grated cocoyam, pounded yam, plucked chicken feathers, and stirred soup that splattered her once perfect dress. Smoke stunned her eyes, hot oil burned her arms. She bit her lips to hold back the scream. At noon, her knee buckled. She sat outside, panting like a dog. Mama Ibele stepped out and looked at her with a smirk. You are doing well for a lazy woman. Adana glared at her but said nothing. Later, when the food was ready, Mama Ebele called her to carry 2 pots to the festival square. Me? Adana gasped. Do I look like a food carrier? Mama Ebele folded her arms. Then starve. The villagers were already gathered under the big tree. Drummer played, children danced, smoke from the firewood kitchen swirled in the air. Adana carried the heavy pots with trembling arms, sweat dripping down her back. No one helped her. No one pitied her. They were all watching to see if the queen would break. And that night, as she laid in her hut with bruised hand and sore feet, her pride no longer wrapped around her like a shawl. She whispered again, I want to go home. But the village wind blew through the crack in the wall and answered back with silence. Her husband was still watching, and he hadn't called yet. By the third morning, Adana no longer cried when the rooster crowed. Her body still ached, but her pride had begun to loosen like old thread. She wore a borrowed wrapper, her silk dress now forgotten in a dusty corner of the hut. Her once glossy hair was wrapped with a plain scarf. She stepped outside to sweep the compound without being asked. The other women in the village noticed. Mama Ebele, one whispered, the city girl dey sweep oh. She even fetched water yesterday without shouting. Another added, maybe she's changing. Adana heard the whisper, and though her face remained stone, her heart dropped. So, was she changing, or was she just surviving? Later that morning, she was sent to the market square with Ifnaya to help sell palm oil. Balancing a basin on her head, Adana struggled to walk straight on the narrow bush path. Her steps were slow, her pride even slower. At the market, she sat under a tree while Ifnaya arranged the bottle of red oil. As they waited for customers, a group of young women walked past, laughing and chewing sugarcane. One of them pointed at Adana. Isn't that the madam that used to live in that big mansion with gold curtains? Yes, another giggled. Now she's selling oil like us. Wonders. Adana pretended not to hear, but her cheek burned with shame. That evening, as she stirred a pot of beans for the village children, she stared into the fire and whispered to herself, "How did I become this woman?" Behind her, Mama Ebele stood silent, arms folded. "You became this woman," Mama Ebele said slowly, "the day you thought your wealth made you bigger than work." Adana turned to her, eyes wet. "I didn't know I was this useless until now." Mama Ebele sat beside her and nodded. "You were not useless. You were pampered. There is a difference. But now you are learning." Adana blinked, unsure whether it was shame or relief that warmed her chest. That night, for the first time since she arrived, she laughed. It was small, unsure, but it was real. And far away in the city mansion, her husband sat in front of the TV screen, watching and smiling. She was almost ready, but not yet. It was a calm night. The moon hung high, painting the village in silver light. The wind whispered through the trees, and the crickets sang their usual lullaby. Adana was just about to drift into sleep when she heard footsteps. Footsteps, soft but hurried. She sat up, her ears sharpened, and her heart raced. More footsteps, then whispers. She tiptoed to a small window of her hut and peeped. Shadows moved near Mama Ebele's kitchen. Three figures, one held a long stick, another carried a sack. Her body tensed. They were thieves. Her first instinct was to scream, but she covered her mouth. If the thieves heard her, they might come for her first. She backed away from the window, trembling. She could pretend she saw nothing, go back to sleep. It wasn't her problem. Then something shifted inside her. She remembered Mama Ebele's kindness, Ifunaya's gentle help, the villagers who now treated her with quiet respect. They had done nothing but teach her what life outside her gold-plated palace looked like. She couldn't stay silent. Adana crept out of the hut barefoot. Her mind raced. Who would believe her if she screamed? The villagers were scattered in their homes. There was no alarm bell, no security man to call. She grabbed a nearby stick and crept closer to the kitchen. The thieves were rummaging through the pots and bags. One whispered, "Let's take the dry fish. That thing sells fast in the city." Adana's heart beat so loud, she feared they would hear her. Suddenly, she stepped on a dry twig. The men spun around. "There is someone there." Adana didn't wait. She ran towards the central compound, screaming, "Thieves! Thieves in the kitchen! Wake up!" Lamps flickered on, doors swung open, men grabbed cutlass, women shouted in alarm. Within seconds, the quiet night turned to thunder. The thieves tried to run, but the villagers were quicker. They were caught and dragged to the village square. Angry voices rose. People shouted for punishment. Mama Ebele arrived. Out of breath, her eyes wide, she looked at the scattered pot, the missing dry fish, and then at Adana. "You saw them?" she asked. Adana nodded, still trembling. "You raised the alarm?" Adana nodded again. Mama Ebele stepped forward slowly, placed her palm on Adana's cheeks, and whispered, "Thank you." For the first time, Adana didn't feel like a stranger. That night, as the villagers gathered and sang in relief, they insisted that Adana sat beside the elders during the meeting. She refused at first, but they insisted. She wasn't just the city wife anymore. She was one of them. But while the village celebrated, her husband watched from the hidden camera in the shrine, a proud smile on his face. The morning after the attempted theft, the village buzzed with tales of Adana's bravery. Children reenacted her scream in the compound. Women praised her boldness. Men nodded at her with new respect. For once, no one saw her as a spoilt billionaire's wife, but deep in the heart of the village, inside the old shrine hut, where her husband had been secretly staying and watching, Chief Nnaji decided it was time to return.